I'd like to welcome you, Damon, to the next edition of Living a Good Life. We broadcast on Cast 11, part of the Talking Glass media collection of entertainment. Damon, I want to talk today. I want to get right into it. I want to give you a minute. We want to talk about the YMCA.
Okay.
I want to talk about how that fits into community and design of a community. Touch on philanthropy, what it means to the Y and a community, and families. So I'm Brad Fain. I'm the host of Living a Good Life, and Damon Olsen is here, the CEO of the Y. Why don't you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Damon Olsen. I'm CEO of the YMCA of Yavapai County. We are right now. We're in Prescott and ambitiously trying to get into Prescott Valley. I've been with the YMCA here since 2011. Prior to that, I was in the Valley of the Sun YMCA down in Phoenix for almost 10 years, and 8 years in Whittier, California, and 2 years in Newport Beach. So I've been with the Y for a long time. The short story of it, I guess, is my dad asked me to. My dad was a Y guy. He was an executive director in Hawaii, and I grew up in Hawaii.
Oh, so the Y in Hawaii. So
yeah, it was
pretty rough.
It was rough. Yes, yeah. My first program.
Tell me how bad it was.
It was horrible. Yeah, summer day camp meant going to the beach like 3 days a week. I always make sure you had your buddy because you wanted to make sure he doesn't go underwater. But going to the beach 3 days a week was not a bad gig. So it was a lot of fun. My dad and I saw him come home from some meetings with some headaches, and he asked me, "Do you want to work for the Y?" And I said, "No, I don't want to work for the Y." So he kind of let it go for a little bit, and I got home from college, and he asked me again. He says, "At the Newport Beach Y," at this time he was a vice president in Orange County. He says, "At the Newport Beach Y, we have an opening for a fitness center attendant." And I said, "So what do you do?" And he said, "You show people how to use the machines and put people on programs and develop relationships." And I said, "Will you actually pay people to do that?" He said, "Yeah, not very much." And so I did. And so I went in, and what I really liked about it was different every day. I had worked after college. I had worked some odd jobs. I was a cost analyst for a friend of mine's, and my background is in business. And I was a cost analyst for a company, Sigma Information Systems. They were in Las Vegas. And so I had a computer in a cubicle. And after about 3 months, after the first day actually in my head, but after 3 months I said, "This isn't going to work." I need more interaction with people.
Okay.
So after I got done with that and I came to California, he had me apply for the job, and I got it, and I just like the people. I'm a people person. So I like being around people, and it's never the same at the YMCA. Everything's different. It's ever changing because people are ever changing and different all the time.
Wow, what a great story. So you were truly lifetime invested in some aspect of the YMCA, being a member to a family member growing up inside the organization to now running your own Y here in the greater Prescott Valley area in Prescott.
Yeah, my Y story begins when I was 5 years old. And the summer day camp program at the Windward YMCA in Kailua, Hawaii was my first entree into the Y, and that was 40-ish years ago.
40, 30 plus, 30, couple bonus rounds?
Couple. Yeah, but in and around YMCA's all my life.
Great.
And it's been a lot of fun.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. As you know, part of the Fain Signature Group, we do a lot of development around Prescott Valley, and we're in this bigger conversation of what goes into the design of a community. And we've touched on all kinds of things like housing and the nuts and bolts and the meat and potatoes of it. But a lot of people don't understand there's a lot of things that go into the social fabric of a community and its design, and it's intentional. And so what I want to talk about from your perspective is how do you see, let's start in Prescott, and then maybe we'll move to Prescott Valley, because that's what we're aspiring for, to have a Y here in Prescott Valley. But how do you see the Y as being such an important ingredient to the design of the community of Prescott? Because I don't think people look at it as the Y is part of the design. So how do you see that from your lens?
I think it's a great question, and I've been a part of 5 different Ys. This Y by far is the most important Y in the community that I've ever been at. And that is because, mainly because we do so many different programs in the community, and there's not a true community center in the city of Prescott. The community center where people go to meet and make their connections and even have business meetings and what have you, a lot of that happens at the Y. So if you don't have a central hub for people to meet, a natural central hub, well, then you're kind of missing something. And so this YMCA, we've done a study, I think it was 3 years ago, and there's 45,000-ish not members, but people in Prescott. And, we 10, 12,000 members, people actually coming to the Y. So we're touching the community in a really deep fashion. And I think it's because not only do we purposefully want people to make connections at the Y, but we have different programs that align with almost every age group that you have.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because this really, you blew me away when I was like, what's the profile of a Y member? And what blew me away was there's not a profile. So tell me about your members, and the way you describe it is you got your morning, early morning, you got your mid morning. So go through, what's a member look like?
Well, that experience really is a multi-generational experience. So in the morning, you've got, we open up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you have your early morning swim guys and your early morning workout guys. And those are mostly the folks that are going to work early. They want to get their swim lane. They want to get their workout in. They want to, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we have early morning basketball. So there's doctors and lawyers playing basketball against each other. And then as that wave moves out and kind of goes to work, well, then it's backfilled in with retirees. So folks that stay at home and they watch the morning news, had their cup of coffee and said, hey, let's go do, this class at the Y, or go work out or go see our friends. That's when they start moving in.
So it's really social for that group.
A lot of it's social, but it's social kind of after they work out.
Okay.
We have a very large lobby. So they sit around, have coffee, and kind of kibitz about, what's going on in their lives and what's happening in the community. And so from 8:30 to about 11:30 is when we have the largest wave, I guess, of that group of folks. Then if you're, and that's when the building swells. That's when we've got we've got active older adult water classes going on in the pool. We have arthritis therapy classes going on in the smaller pool. We have just your normal folks working out in the fitness center and in the weight room. Then we have a Zumba class or a yoga class going on in the various different classes that we have. During that time also we have private gymnastics lessons, and then, oh, by the way, we have a preschool over here that starts at age 3 and goes all up to the age of 5, and so all of those programs at that time are in play. So it's a hopping place, and people are it's hard to find a parking spot at the Y during that time. Now when the folks get out of those programs and they go home, what have you, then there's the next group of folks that are like your lunch breakers. They'll come in, or folks that are retired that don't want to come in and do the early morning stuff. There's a lot less folks in the parking lot, and they just kind of do their thing. And that happens from about 11:30 to 3, depending on the day. Now school gets out early, kids come in early. So then you get your next wave of kids. So now we've got the younger kids. And most of the kids, because where we are right next to the high school, and as where we're planning to be here in Prescott Valley, the kids just naturally roll right down the hill and come into the Y, and then they're working out, or they're playing basketball, or they're doing any number of different programs that happen then. That's from 3:30 to about 5:30. Then you've got the moms and the kids coming in the evening. So mom and the kids come in the evening, someone's gonna go work out here, someone's gonna go swim, someone's taking a swim lessons, somebody's taking a CPR class. I mean, it's a multi-generational experience. We have Mommy and Me programs, so kids that are just learning about water, what does it feel like? So we have that group. So we really aim to reach the community members at all ages and all phases of their life. And we try to have our programming in those areas so that something appeals to them. We say at the Y in Prescott that you are a member, you were a member, or you're going to be a member. And so some people also come back, after they've gone off and done other things. But it's a really interesting, very eclectic blend of people. But like I said, that's why I like it. It really has become a part of the community because we have so many different programs, because something appeals to each of those ages.
Yeah,
or at least we try.
So this profile of a Y member or a Y family member being there to work out and it's fitness only is so much more than that. It's about, I'm hearing life skills, I'm hearing after school programming, I'm hearing senior activities. It could be physical, but it could just be getting them out of the house and they do a Y activity and then they're socializing. So all of that laying into the fabric. And what do you see as the benefit back to the community because there's a Y in the community? And do you see it being more important in rural communities versus maybe the larger cities where there's more options available?
I do.
For the community?
Absolutely. I've seen that firsthand, especially before this, I was at the Valley at the Sun YMCA and in Mesa and in the Gilbert area, the East Mesa Gilbert area, and the plethora of options for you to go do what have you. But in more rural communities, and we're not super rural, but people come from Prescott Valley to the Y in Prescott. People come from Chino Valley to the Y in Prescott. People come from Paulden. People come from Dewey. It's such an important part of the programming. It's such an important part of their lives. We have people that come, I want to say at least 4 days a week, that drive in from the Prescott Country Club, that come to the Y because they meet their friends and they do their exercise. And I would say, back to one of the things that you mentioned earlier, 90% of the folks that are coming to the Y that are, I would say, 75 years old, maybe younger, 65 to 100 years old, they're coming from socialization. They get the exercise, but they don't, some of them just, other than the Y and going shopping, they just don't get out of the house. Wow. And that's one of the things that was that really affected them when the pandemic hit. Mm-hmm. Because as you know, the governor says by mandate, gyms, bars, all of these places have to close. They categorized us as a gym, even though we have many different programs that we have. We had to turn and pivot and do our classes. Our instructors were doing classes online so that they could see a familiar face and do a class and at least kind of have that feel.
So that was for the 65 or older that was coming in. Now they're on a Zoom class?
They were.
Okay.
Yeah, they were on
during
Zoom.
COVID.
During COVID.
During the heat of the lockdown. So you were still engaging with those folks and they could still see their friends.
Yes.
You just had to do it via the internet.
Yeah.
So you told me a story, speaking of COVID, about because you were classified as a gym and you kind of had to shut down. How did you stay open for the benefit of the community during COVID? Because you have a really great story of what you were able to do because you were a Y, and your mission is really about the community.
Yeah. Our mission, one of the things that we want to do is just serve the community and meet the community where they're at. So in COVID, you had to meet the community when they were at home. So how did we have to do that? What could we do to meet the community at home? So back to the exercise classes, we had our instructors, and it was interesting because they had to wear a mask or a shield, and then they had to set up the video camera, and then they had to record themselves, and we had our fitness director had to make sure that it was casting. Mm-hmm. So we were vaulted into all of this technological stuff that we knew that at some point we'd have to get into, but we were kind of forced into. But if we wanted to meet the community where they were, that's what we had to do. Yeah. And so we did the classes online. We made wellness calls to a lot of our active older seniors in our membership just to say, hey, how you doing? Do you need something? Are you lacking food? How can we help you? And a lot of them were very grateful that we did that. And a lot of them just wanted to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So reaching people where they are is one of the things that we strive to do. And the other thing that we did, as you all know, that the schools closed.
Yeah.
And so we said, well, parents were saying, I have a challenge with my son or daughter getting online and doing the school thing. I know firsthand that because my wife's a fifth grade teacher at Granite Mountain Elementary. And so we reached out to some of our donors, and they were able to give us some additional money to increase our Wi-Fi capability in the building so that we could have the teacher that was on screen. We took our instructors. We had our gymnastics instructor, our assistant gymnastics director, and our child care director, our sports director, all jumped in and were in classes with these kids, making sure that they kind of did their homework and followed them along as they were doing it. Because when you close the schools and when you close a Y, you don't just close an entity. This is for kids. This is where they get their structure. This is where they get their food. This is where they get to connect with their friends. This is where they get to play. And so when you don't have that, it's hard. So we decided again to reach our community where they were, and these kids were able to come in and do their classwork, but still get to play in the gym and do YMCA programs. And we partnered with the schools, and the schools had the food for us. So kids got breakfast, kids got lunch. So we made it as close to a real experience for them as we could.
So when you had to shut down the Y from a fitness perspective, the gym's closed, the basketball courts are closed, you were able to pivot there and turn it into just a makeshift classroom. And so kids came to the Y to go to school.
Kids came
in
to
a
the
sense
Y.
because they needed to. And that's otherwise, I mean, I can't even imagine how much further kids would have fallen behind if that wasn't available.
Yeah.
And what kind of value is that to our community?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what we did. And we had to serve the folks that were working, all of the essential workers. We had a whole bunch of kids that were from the hospital because all of their folks were working. We had teachers from all or workers from all different segments coming in, calling saying, "Hey, are you guys going to be still be open because we need care because we have to go to work?"
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. That's what you do when you're a Y, right? We have to serve our community, and that's where the community needed us at the time, and so that's what we did.
So even though most people read or heard the Y was closed because of the government mandates, you guys were really busting at the seams and going 24/7 to help the community.
Absolutely. We
What a
wanted to
great
make sure
story.
that the kids had somewhere to go.
I don't think people know that about, like, I didn't know that until you told me that story about how you were helping with education, but that's why it's so important that a Y is part of a community and part of its design. And so with that, let's pivot to Prescott Valley. Okay. Prescott Valley's had a long history of trying to get a Y. I knew of a couple stories, you knew of a couple different stories, but it's safe to say for a few decades, Prescott Valley has been trying to get some form of a Y out here. We now have our best start of maybe getting one. Talk to me about how we build a Y, because it sounds like when a Y is built, like we go to Prescott, we see the Y, it's already built. It takes care of itself pretty much. You guys, for the most part, you have membership dues. We can talk a little bit about that structure because really nobody's turned away from a Y. It's not about costs, right? Anybody can be a Y member, no matter of your financial situation.
Correct.
But getting it built is really a big number. And we look at today's costs of construction, and I mean, we're talking what used to be $100 a foot, today is $300 a foot when you're talking about construction. And so it's really hard. So talk to us a little bit about what it takes and how you approach building a new Y in a community like Prescott Valley.
So the first thing that you really have to have for a community to get a Y is you have to have needs. So YMCA's, the other reason, YMCA's exist to serve unmet needs in the community.
Okay.
So we look out and say, okay, well, what's the unmet need in Prescott Valley? Well, we've got an influx of new folks coming in. We've already got a stable base of people. You have to have enough rooftops and enough people in a town, first of all, to support it, sustain it. So after the Y gets built, like you said, we have to have enough people buying memberships in order for it to sustain itself. And so some folks in smaller communities don't have enough. So there might be a smaller Y or a different program center. So for here, we looked at it and said, well, Prescott Valley has had a lot of rooftops for a long time. It's just a matter of, okay, how do we design it? How do we build it? Where do we build it? But first you have to test the appetite of the people. So we do a survey, right? We are part of the survey.
Yep.
We send it out to the community saying, if a YMCA were to be built, would you be a member? And if you would, and what kinds of programs and services would you like to see at this YMCA? So we had a survey done. We had 2 surveys done actually, because we tested 2 sites in Prescott Valley, and we tested one site in North Prescott. As you know, out by the airport, North Prescott's growing as well.
Yeah.
And a good friend of ours, the James family, has some land out there and says, hey, we'd love to have a Y out there, but we commissioned a company called Gilwright. The Gilwright, gosh, I can't remember, but it's Gilwright Services. They commissioned a study to see which area is more ready to have a Y and in which location. And so we had the Fain land, which was right here, and I can't remember what you call it, Sector 1 or Section A.
Section 14, downtown.
Downtown
Prescott Valley.
So downtown, great property, close to the Civic Center, close to the school, kind of in the library, in the heart of the community. So to us, it was like, this is probably going to be number 1, but hey, let's test it. Larry Tarkowski, former town manager, says, hey, there's going to be what he calls the future Central Park, which I think is off Long Look further east. Right now, I think it's a retention basin, but there's an area over there that could be turned into the Y. And then we tested out by Deepwell Ranch.
Okay. North of the airport,
North of the airport.
Okay.
Yeah. So they came back and says, well, right now, if you were to build the YMCA right now, the most viable place to build it would be on the Fain land here, right in the middle of Prescott Valley. Because, and they said, you know, if you took a radius, a 15-mile drive radius from this location, how many different people could connect to the Y within a 15-mile or 15-minute drive radius?
Okay, so 15-minute drive.
Yeah.
All right.
And they even broke it down into how many stoplights would you have to stop at to actually come here. And so they said, okay, this section is by far the best. The other one in North Prescott would be number 2, and the other one in Prescott, or further east in Prescott Valley, would be number 3. So we did that survey to test, okay, because we're talking about millions and millions of dollars to build a YMCA. Millions of dollars for land, millions of dollars for everything. So you can't not do your homework on it.
Yeah.
So you got to do that. So we tested the 3 sites. We came to the realization that this is a site that would be most beneficial. Then we went back out into the community, and the Gilwright group also went back out and says, okay, if this Y was built here with these amenities, and I think we just had a gym, a pool, a fitness center, would you be a member? And oh, by the way, what other things would you like to see? And so they quantify the results of it by having, I want to say, 20% response rate or whatever it is, or 5% response rate. And I think they said they sent out 15,000 mailers, flyers, what have you, and they got back, it was nearly 75%. It was like off the charts.
So somewhere between 5 and 20% is a good response rate, and you got a 75% response rate to your second flyer. So based on the location, minimum level of services, and then asking what else?
Yeah, exactly.
75%.
75%.
Wow.
They said they had been doing this studies for a long time, so the highest one they've ever seen by far.
Wow.
Like by far off the charts.
So we need a Y in Prescott Valley.
So the need was established.
The community.
We verified it, right?
And the community is saying we want it.
Yes.
And is the community also saying they'll support it via membership?
Yes. Yeah.
So we talk a little bit about how membership works, because I want everybody to understand there's not a financial burden to membership. So talk about how you manage that at the Y.
Yeah. So we want to have as many members as we possibly can. We want to serve our community. But not every community member has the financial means to be a member at the full rate.
And what's the full rate today?
So the full rate
for the Prescott
is $47 for a single member.
Okay.
$74 for a family.
All right.
So let's say family A comes in and says, I'm sorry, I can't, I want to be a member and I want to participate in the programs. And we firmly believe that all the families and all the kids should be at the Y doing some kind of program, some kind of life-changing, enriching program. And so we say, okay, well, we give them a financial assistance form, which they fill out. They'll write down what their monthly income is and what their expenses are. We take a look at it, and we have a sliding scale. So if somebody makes X amount of dollars and has, X amount of expenses, you could fall into we're going to give you 25% off. If you make, and then it kind of goes on to 50%, 75%. Some kids, some families, they'll get 100%.
That's nice.
It just depends on what their situation is. And
so you have some people paying full membership, families, and you have some people getting 100% scholarship, if you will, to the Y. So literally nobody, if they want to be a Y member, they will be a Y member.
Yeah. Financial reasons are not a reason why you should not be a member of the Y. It's, there's those barriers we can overcome.
Okay.
Absolutely. We want people to participate. And the beauty of it is that, the person with the most means in the town and the person with the least means in the town could be in a class together, could be walking on a treadmill right next to each other, all in one community.
So talk about that a little bit, because I believe in that as well, that we have different walks of life and we shouldn't separate them because they each carry their own experiences, their own views of the world, and they have something to give to each other. So you probably see it more than I do through the Y. So can you share some of those stories where those people come together and how it enriched their lives?
Yeah, I think a lot of our folks, some of our folks actually come from the Midwest, come east. They've made their way to Prescott, and they're doing very well. But we see that mostly in during what we call our annual campaign time of the year, where we go out and we actually raise money. And this is where we get this money to actually assist the people that come in. The folks that have means and get to see some of the kids that are in the programs and can see some of the folks that are in the locker rooms and know about our financial assistance program, they're happy to give because they've been blessed and enriched in their life to a large degree by whatever experience they have. But a lot of them want at least the kids and the families to be able to participate in some program that they're doing too. It's not the country club. It's not status. It's not about status. And again, like I said, I think there are people that have no means that we financially assisted 100%, that are in the aqua aerobics class next to one of the some of the most rich people in town, but they're just friends. Just here doing a program, trying to better themselves, trying to live their life as healthy as they possibly can. And that's just, you're just Brad, I'm just Damon. We're just doing our thing.
Yeah, isn't that great when those labels come off and people can just be people and we come together and we're here for the good of each other and the good of the program?
Yes, and we get to see that almost on a daily basis.
How wonderful.
Which is really cool.
So we were talking a little bit about how we build a Y, And so you were in the middle of that before I took you down a path. So we have surveys and research. We have site selection and then more surveys. So now you have a site you're excited about. You have a community that's saying, we'll support it through membership and otherwise.
Yeah.
How do you build it? So just ballpark a new Y today that you're looking at in Prescott Valley, can we say? We're looking in the 25 plus
25,
range, 25 million plus to build a new Y.
Correct.
And that's kind of the vertical side, right?
Yeah.
So how do you get to 25 million? Do you finance it? How does a Y get built?
It's a blend. It's a blend. It's certainly a stack, I guess. It's one of the terms that finance people use, right?
It's our financing. It's our stack.
Well, here's kind of how it works. You do the study first, and you figure out, if we get a company like Grow Development, they came out and they did a site survey. They came out, not site survey, but they did a rendering for us. They said, hey, what do you want? And we took that survey that Gilwright did and says, community wants all of this stuff. I said, okay, well, if community wants all that stuff, and we're planning on this YMCA to have at least as many members as Prescott. So the Prescott YMCA is 55,000 square feet under the main building.
Okay.
This Y, we're looking at somewhere between that number and maybe 65,000 square feet. And so, we like aqua aerobics classes. Okay, 2 different pools. What's the climate of the area? We have a climate that's, we get snow, it gets cold, so you're gonna have to cover a pool. You're either gonna have a completely covered pool 100% all the time, or you're gonna have to have a pool that might have a retractable roof to give you kind of the best of both worlds. So you have a company come out, give you an idea of the amenities that you can offer, and say, okay, this is what this thing looks like, fully built out, $25 to $30 million, what have you. And then you go, okay, how do we get to that number? Well, then you go back to your community and say, okay, how much do we think we can raise? And in Prescott Valley, Arizona, I don't know. I think the largest private capital campaign might have been Boys and Girls Club at maybe $1.5 million. So you're looking at a lot more than that.
Yeah.
So we tested, we're testing, we're trying to raise $10 million because in Prescott Valley, Arizona, we've only been able, went out to ask for $1.5 million. So you can't say, you know what, we're going to raise $25 million. Well, people are that's kind of unrealistic. So there has to be a different way to go about it. So we are trying to raise $10 million for this capital campaign for this YMCA. It's a lot more than anybody else has raised in Prescott Valley, but after doing another survey that we did, a fundraising feasibility study, we tested it and say, okay, let's try 10 million. Then you say, okay, because of where this YMCA is located in a federally designated opportunity zone, which is basically an opportunity for us to try to get what's called a new market tax credit. And a new market tax credit is I'm not going to go into the details of it because it's very involved. But long story short is if you're not in the opportunity zone, you can't even apply. It's money from the feds. It comes from the Treasury, and they give opportunities for people to invest in and get tax credits in an area that's undeveloped or they want developed because there's not enough jobs, not enough work, the community needs it. So we qualify for that. We've got another specialist that's working on that. And long story on that one could be that it might be $5 or $6 million that could come from this program, but it's a lot of work. So we're maybe 10 on the fundraising, maybe 6 on the new market tax credit. So then you got 10 or more left to finance. It's like, okay, well, based on your membership numbers, how much is realistic to finance? And so, and what you don't want to do is have so much of a debt burden that it squeezes not only this Y but our other Y, because these Ys are together.
Yeah.
It's YMCA's of Yavapai County, and YMCA's are, there's the Phoenix Association. They've got 15 Ys, and the Tucson Association has 5 Ys. We're a federated organization, and so this Y has to be able to run on its own. We don't get the YMCA of the USA doesn't say, here's $20 million to go build a Y. Yeah. It's all done grassroots.
So it's the community coming together. Community. So it kind of comes back to this whole thing of design and community, and I think we're learning how important a Y is to the community. Not only for our youth and the next generation coming up and giving them a place to continue to grow and develop outside of school. In COVID, it was school, but also all the way up to our retirees enjoying their retirement, keeping them active, keeping them healthy, lowers our healthcare costs. But now the community's got to come together. It really is, the community's got to build this Y, and that's through philanthropy.
Correct.
And you go out and you have your capital campaigns. And so you guys did a capital campaign in Prescott. Was that before you?
It was before me.
Before you, but you know about it.
I do.
So on a scale of what we're looking at in Prescott Valley, what did they raise in Prescott to build? That houses the current pool in that building, right? So what was that capital campaign?
That capital campaign was $5 million.
So we're doubling that.
I think 2 of it was the land.
Okay, but you had to raise 5, and we're looking for 10. Why do people donate to the Y for these capital campaigns?
I think because they want their community to be a place where they can enjoy the amenities of a Y, or where they can see kids and families come together at a place, a community center that's in town. I think, and a lot of folks that give to the Y know the benefit of the Y because they were in programs at the Y. So if they have a Y story or a past experience with the Y that's positive, a lot of them come and say, yeah, we'd like you, community, to have that same experience that we have had. Because it's a grassroots effort. It's going to take everybody to do it. But I think most of the people that give to the Y is because of their past affiliation with the Y and because of the experience that they've had at the Y, or because they know that a YMCA in a community is very beneficial. It is a hub. We're a gathering place. We do programs, but we also meet people where they're at. It's a lot of developers will call it an asset, a very important asset in a community, right? So because people need somewhere to go, people need somewhere to connect, and when you have an organization who strives to have programs at every age range, chances are they're gonna fit into one of those categories and come to the Y.
So when I look at it, you call it an asset, but in the design of a community, you want, just like you would want in your business or you would want in your stock portfolio, you want something that is going to continue to grow and be sustainable.
Absolutely.
And I always hold that in a community, it's the health of the families. If the families are healthy and thriving and families can move here and make a living and make a difference and live a good life, then the community's healthy. And when you start losing your families and people start moving out of your community, then your community's not healthy anymore. And there's examples of that. I mean, the big obvious one is Detroit. When the auto manufacturing started leaving and that industry started to shrink in Detroit, I mean, it went through as a community, went through a really bad time, and they're turning it around now, and families are moving back. And so I always correlate families to the health of a community, and that's why I would say a Y is an asset, because it's there for the families, whether it's a retired family and it's a couple, or whether it's a young family that's starting out with kids. They're both families and everybody in between. But that's kind of where I go with it. And so we're working on a Y in Prescott Valley. We're working on the philanthropic part right now to raise it. Give us your best pitch of like, why is it important for this community and really this region? When I say community, it's really the region, because I see we need to work with Prescott, because you already made it clear this is not just the Y at Prescott Valley. This is another Y in Yavapai County.
Absolutely.
Right, so we're gonna have 2 Ys now, and then if I'm a member in Prescott Valley, I can go to Prescott, right? So we're one and the same. But I believe all the communities have to work together and always look for ways to collaborate. So give us your pitch of why the community needs to step up and help you and us, and it really isn't us, be successful with getting this Y in Prescott Valley.
Well, I think to have a vibrant community, you really need a community hub. You need to have an organization that can touch every life in the community, and the YMCA is that organization. Whether it's somebody, a young lady who's in a prenatal program at the Y Water Experience program, or folks that are in the Silver Sneaker program, or in our Parkinson's exercise program, where people that are, the magic that happens within the walls of the Y, here's one of them, one of the coolest ones. The Parkinson's exercise program, people come and they do these large, big motion exercises because they're afflicted with Parkinson's. And when you have Parkinson's, you don't get better. You're not going to get better. So you're trying to live your best life on a daily basis, and that includes making sure that we do as many exercises as we can to live the best life that we can. That happens at the YMCA every day. The other thing that happens at the YMCA on a daily basis is kids learn how to swim. So if you take a child and you teach them how to swim, you just saved a life. Like people don't, or people down in the valley, I mean, there's a pool in every backyard. But if a kid falls in the water and is water safe enough to get himself to the side, then he can save his own life. We're teaching those skills at the Y on a daily basis. So we get people in Parkinson's programs. We got people, kids learning how to swim in these programs. We've got youth basketball programs where kids learn how to be a good teammate. It's like we all work in jobs where we have to be a good teammate, right? So these are lifelong lessons that happen on a daily basis at a YMCA. And if we don't have a YMCA, where do these things happen? I don't know, because these happen every day in Prescott. So these need to happen every day in Prescott Valley. That's why it's so important. It's, facilities are tools for the mission and the magic to happen. So if we have the facilities, then the mission and the magic can really happen. And so that's why I would encourage people to give, because these are life-altering, life-changing, and life-enriching programs that we get to see on a daily basis that, oh, by the way, make your community a better place to live, keep your family together, right? Yeah. Brings everybody together. So that's why I think people should give to the Y and this project.
Damon, thank you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Appreciate your time and learning and sharing. It truly is a hand up and not a handout having a Y in the community. So awesome. Appreciate your story. And Brad Fain with Damon Olsen, thank you for joining us on Living a Good Life, Cast 11.